Hey, Debbie.
Hello.
So I so appreciate you just talking with me today and sharing something that so many people can relate with,
hmm
and that is the experience of addiction. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, what your journey has been with addiction.
Well, my journey started when I was a teenager and it started with the weekend partying and things like that. And over the years, the weekend partying turned into everyday drinking, which ended up ultimately turning into every hour drinking. And just I was a maintenance drinker, and got to a point where I couldn't even fathom what it was like to go through even a day without drinking. And it was horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible. My life on the outside, you would never know how I was just falling apart on the inside. The outside, I had this superwoman thing. My career was accelerating. Supposedly had this happy marriage. The big house, the three-car garage. All the trappings of happy living. But I was dying on the inside, and just kept drowning out my feelings and myself with alcohol. And as my life was literally just spinning out of control inside, I was just dying. I could see no way out. I mean, I was trapped. I was absolutely trapped in addiction. And the marriage I was in was emotionally and mentally abusive. And that, along with the guilt and the shame that I had inside of my addiction, but on the outside, wanted to have this perfect Debbie available to everybody. It was just living that whole Gemini world. And depression just started taking over my life at a certain point, because I could see no way out of the situation I was in. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I had at the time a 3-year-old daughter who was the glimpse of joy in my life. And I really couldn't even appreciate that, which was really so sad, so sad. So I was just existing. I was a shell of a woman, just existing and going through the motions of life on a daily basis. And I'll never forget the morning I was getting ready to go to the office, and I was at the depths of depression. I mean, just again, I could see no way out. I couldn't live vision of life without drinking. I couldn't live my life while drinking. And I woke up one morning, I was getting ready, and I remember it was January in Chicago area. And I was listening to the radio, and they were going on about the news. And on the news, they talked about how a woman the night before had taken her car, strapped her two children into the back seat of her SUV, and drove into Lake Michigan in January and drowned and died, and with the kids in the back seat. And there was part of me that was like going, that is a viable option. It is a viable option. The thought right after that was, I'm a wuss with a cold, and I could never, just the whole thought of that just kind of shook me. But it was the first time where the seeds of suicide were planted in my brain. And it wasn't just suicide, it was going to be homicide. I was going to take my daughter with me. And those thoughts percolated around in my brain for quite a while. As far as I kept going back to that woman, going, God, the relief she had. Her and the children no longer have to live whatever horrors they were in her life. And again, that's kind of those thoughts kept with me for quite a while, until I got to a point where I realized I needed to do something different. And so I went into recovery. And once I started in on recovery, that is kind of how I started bringing the joy back into my life. It took a while. I mean, it took me 2 years of being in the recovery process before it took hold of my life. But once it took hold of my life, it's been a wonderful journey. And the depression was one of the first things that fell away when I started getting into recovery. And my life was forever set on a different path. The life I have today is nothing compared to the life I had when alcohol was having a conversation with me. And my journey has continued on. I got to a point in my recovery, and that's when it's like I was doing really, really well, but I knew there was so much more to my life and my purpose that the recovery movement couldn't do for me anymore. And it was in that journey along that lifeline came into my existence, actually through my daughter, of all people. And it's through that my very first session that my daughter had with you, Dr. Wiseman, was amazing. She came in for health reasons. But what I saw was the power of the spirituality and the power of breaking through those limiting beliefs. And I knew, I'll never forget sitting here across from you talking to you that day when you asked us at the end of our session, do you have any other questions? And I said, I don't have any question. I have nothing wrong with me. And you said to me, you know this is for you as well. And that set my journey on to end up becoming a CLP and working with people, as it has completely transformed my life and the life of the clients that I work with.
Mm-hmm. And having such an intimate connection with addiction
Mm-hmm.
and depression, and getting to that place where your mind was thinking about suicide, homicide, and being at such a dark space.
Yes.
And then waking up to the point where you went into recovery and you started to become really aware of the pattern
Yes.
of thinking and behavior and feelings that were associated with that experience and that face of addiction. How has the Lifeline personally influenced you? How has it personally impacted you? What's different?
What's different is that I have noticed, I mean, one of the sayings is what happens in one aspect of your life happens across all aspects of your life. And there could be things that are going on in my life where I think that a behavior, like let's take anger, for example, in the workplace and people upset me a particular way and I react a certain way, is that the Lifeline has given me the gift of, number one, really being objectively taking a look at that and eliminating that belief, but realizing how that reaction permeates all aspects of my life has been phenomenal. And then what has started really happening for me lately is recognizing those patterns objectively across all areas of my life, where I can really step back and holistically take a look at my life, where before, I was definitely looking at the bark of the tree instead of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And what a gift that is to be able to do that, not only for myself, but I also am able to help others because I can see it more holistically, the situations they're in. Because a lot of the people I work with have been through similar experiences as I have.
Yeah.
So I know where I'm at. I know where they're going. I know exactly what they're experiencing. And what a gift it is to be, for them, a ray of hope that there is a different way of living that is unbelievable.
And as a result, what have you learned from addiction?
What I've learned from addiction is that at the time I saw that as the only choice I had in my life. And what I have learned is that, through the recovery process, I learned that I can make other choices. What Lifeline has given me is the ability to really expand that out, that I can have wonderful things happening in my life, but I still have choices that those wonderful things can be off this planet if I choose to have that. And it really has up-leveled my life from a spirituality, mental, emotional, physical basis in a way that I never could even grasp that's possible.
Because in the recovery world,
Mm-hmm.
it's about avoiding alcohol.
Yes, it is.
It's about avoiding alcohol.
Yes.
And Lifeline has a little bit of a different twist.
Yes, it's not about what Lifeline or addiction, the recovery movement, as you mentioned, is all about looking backwards and how you can prevent yourself from falling into those patterns.
Right.
Lifeline is not about focusing on what you want to have go away. It's focusing on where you want to head your life. And that is a very fundamental shift in the way that I started looking at my life. Isn't so much looking and glancing at the rearview mirror and having fear of what may happen out in front of me. It's like really taking a hold of my life and walking in faith and in grace about the direction I want to push my life. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, because that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. It is.
That's a big difference. And at some point we have to create healthy boundaries and say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And that isn't my best choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. But then, rather than just being a victim of it, where this is just the cards I've been dealt, and I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life.
What, you know, the Lifeline has done for me is that my addiction is just a fact of my life. No different than the fact that I have blue eyes. And that is the one thing. It's something that I certainly had to deal with, you know, just like I'm dealing with a lot of things in my life, like we all do.
Right.
But it doesn't have to own me,
Mm-hmm.
which before the addiction absolutely owned me, and to a certain extent recovery owned me, the recovery process.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, well, again, like we talked about, it was like it was in that, I don't want to say it's fear based, but it's about making sure that I have my defenses up. A lot of the conversations around making sure I have my deposits into my bank, you know, by doing the things that the program, the recovery program movement asks for you to do, which is wonderful and good. But it comes to a certain place where it becomes ineffective for my holistic life.
In what way?
That again, I don't look backwards. I continue moving forward, and I continue making right choices for myself and for my daughter and for those around me. And for me, is really the fundamental shift is addiction is no longer even an option. It's not even a consideration in my life anymore. I really don't even think of it that much. Like I just don't even think about the fact that I have blue eyes. It's just a fact of my life. And that's the gift of the Lifeline.
And what's your vision now? Being aware that you're aware and having tools and strategies to support you. Tell me what the vision of your beautiful heart is.
My vision is to empower others to live an incredible life, whatever life that they were put here on earth for, and to be able, through Lifeline, be able to eliminate some of those limiting beliefs that are holding us back from stepping into our true potential. And as I continue my journey with Lifeline and in my life, you know, I'm a great example of the power of it and the focus and the amazing results that happen in your life and the world that's just waiting for us just to open up and be part of.
Mm-hmm. I so appreciate you just taking the time just to share your experience, because it's the pink elephant in the room.
Absolutely it is.
Right?
Yes.
And for people to just even openly, candidly talk about the most vulnerable aspect of their life, where there's so much shame and guilt and regret, to speak consciously and confidently and compassionately about yourself. You know, just that in itself tells so much, but even more because there's somebody right now that's watching this that is having the same kind of thoughts you were having when your daughter was 3.
Yeah.
And who is become a person who drinks as a means to, you know, really wall off a part that just, they don't know how to process their emotions.
Right, exactly right.
You know, they don't know how to process their emotions. And, you know, do you mind even speaking about that? You know, what that means?
Yeah, it means that you don't even feel, you're just numb to life. And it really truly is about going through the motions of life, so that joy that you may have had in your life in your early childhood, for example, or perhaps never even experienced before, seems like something you can never have again. I mean, just never have again. And the alcohol just keeps drowning it out and numbing it out. And then once you eliminate that, or any other drugs or addiction you may have, then when you start feeling, I mean, the feelings are so overwhelming because they're just coming out because they've been pushed down for so long. It's overwhelming. It is very overwhelming to have all these feelings and not know. I didn't even understand what anger was. I didn't even understand I was even in depression. I just knew I had no way out, and I knew I couldn't. There's no way I could go into recovery because I could never live a life without drinking. I couldn't even fathom what that would be like.
And what is anger?
Anger today is uncontrolled, is my emotions uncontrolled by allowing someone to, giving someone permission to make me upset is basically what anger is today for me. And so for me, it's eliminating those triggers, those limiting beliefs that are along with those triggers. So I don't react in anger. I have peace and I have love. I have gratitude in my life today. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about.
Yeah, well, you're such a bright light. I so appreciate you, and infinite love and gratitude.
Infinite love and gratitude.